So, ever since I published my 2 blog posts on Heathens, my video on Heathens, and my podcast on Heathens, I've gotten tons of kickback. A lot of people are trying to tell me that it's not about Christian witnessing and that it's actually about the Skeleton Clique. And I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but if you think it's about the clique, you're wrong. Let me explain. So I'm kind of sorry to be talking about this because it's sort of a contentious topic for the Skeleton Clique. A lot of people think that it's about them, and when you hear that a song is about you, you think that's great, but then other people want to tell you that it's not, and that's sad. So I know that there might be a lot of emotions centered around this topic, but I've got some very strong proof for why this is not about the Skeleton Clique. And if you want to respond, I'd love to talk about this with you, but let's respond using proof and evidence. I've gotten a lot of people who just say, wrong, 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 or they say, sorry, you're wrong, this is about the Skeleton Clique, not about, Christian witnessing. But nobody ever responds with proof or evidence. After all, I'm one of the original people who argued that it is about the Skeleton Clique. You may have even read my blog post about it. My first blog post about Heathens explained that it was probably about the Skeleton Clique and about new fans, but if you look at the beginning or the end of the article, I have a link that says, check out my other article where I explain why I'm probably wrong. Because just a few days after I published that blog post, somebody else, a few other people actually, tried to explain to me why I may be wrong, and based on the evidence that they gave me, I changed my mind and wrote a new blog post and created a podcast explaining why it was actually about Christian witnessing. So Heathens was released about a year after Blurryface was released, and that's, when Stressed Out and Ride were going really, really popular on Billboard Hot 100 and a lot of other places. People were listening to it, and they were starting to figure out, oh, there's this band called 21 Pilots, and they're really cool. So the band got a lot of new fans, and the Skeleton Clique maybe felt a little bit abandoned because all these new fans were coming in, or at least they felt maybe disrespected because they'd been fans of the band for a long time, and they rely on the band for a lot of emotional support. The songs are very deep and personal to them. So when all these new fans come in saying, hey, I just heard Stressed Out, that's a really great song, I guess I'm a 21 Pilots fan, Skeleton Clique was like, we are the 21 Pilots fans, you are something else. So there was a lot of kickback in the Skeleton Clique. By the way, Skeleton Clique is the name for 21 Pilots fan base. But there was a lot of kickback, and some of the Skeleton Clique members got angry or shamed new fans. And new fans, were like, what's wrong with these people? And I don't think that was very common, but it did happen. So the theory runs that Tyler wrote Heathens as a way to address the squabbling that was going on between the two parties. And it goes either way. Sometimes the theories will be that he was writing it to the Skeleton Clique, sometimes the theories will be that he's writing it to the new fans. The word Heathens then either refers to the new fans or refers to the Skeleton Clique. So these either new fans or the clique who are starting to rely on 21 Pilots music very emotionally, they have that, quote, half of the abuse, right? So if we're saying that the song is to the Skeleton Clique, Tyler's saying that these people who come in may have suffered abuse too, and that the Skeleton Clique doesn't necessarily know the half of the abuse either, and so he's trying to reconcile the two camps like that. If he's writing it to the new people, he's saying, hey, back off, like the Skeleton Clique, they've been through a lot, and if you want to join, you need to be respectful, you don't know the half of the abuse. All my friends are heathens, take it slow. He wants them to just kind of ease into this thing rather than try to force themselves into being some of the hard, dedicated fans, right? So when Tyler says, wait for them to ask you who you know, the theory goes that he's telling new listeners to back off before they claim Tyler's name as, oh yeah, like I'm a 21 Pilots fan, it's all cool. Now how do I know all of this? And before you think that I'm just crazy for discounting this, well, it's because I wrote the blog post on this. But like I said, then some friends convinced me otherwise, and here is the other argument. Number one, we take a more literal definition of heathens. So we're saying that they're, non-religious people. And two, for the context of interpreting the song, we take a larger perspective, so we're looking at the culture as a whole rather than just the culture of the band. And that's why we think that it's about Christian witnessing, maybe in an American context, or even a world context, but we don't think that it's just about the band. So you can see where these two arguments they split at the point where you decide how big the context of the song is. And then there are several lines that point to this argument, one of them being, wait for them to ask you who you know, take it slow. There's definitely a conversation in American Christian culture right now about how witnessing should work, whether it's something that you should just go and slap people over the head with the Bible and be like, hey, you gotta believe in Jesus, it's great. Or whether you should try to, be friends with somebody first, and then as you see a need develop, then you can tell them about this really great thing that you know about. So they'll wait for them to ask you who you know. That person is Jesus in this case. The verses that talk about the freak show or the psychopath sitting next to you are just kind of references to sin nature and the fact that you can go in and try to solve somebody's problems, but you don't know the half of the abuse, So if you come in there saying like, hey, I've got the solution and you don't have to worry about it anymore because I got all your problems solved, people are going to think that you're insincere. They're not going to believe you. They're not going to trust you, and you're going to hurt people more than you're actually going to help them. And then for the outro, the theory goes that this Christian who was trying to witness to people decides to stick it out for the long haul. They slow down, and they decide to meet people where they're at, and to value them for human beings first, rather than just as, potentials for converts. And two of the most difficult lines in the song are in that outro. One of them is Tyler whispering, and most people can't hear this when they listen to the song, it's blasphemy. And that would mean that what he's arguing, what he's suggesting, kind of goes against what has been sort of a traditional way of witnessing for the past few decades, very much an in-your-face, let's preach on the street corner type of way. And I've grown up in the church, and I know that that's definitely been affirmed and championed in a lot of the Christian circles I've been in. I mean, heck, with conferences like Dare to Share, where one of the big points is just to go and talk to people you've never met before about your faith, it's definitely a huge thing for the church. The second line is, and now they're outside ready to bust. And that line is super confusing in either one. And this is probably the most difficult line in the song, but according to the theory that I'm coming at you from, it's about the other Christians or this person's own personal temptations and struggles being outside ready to hurt him as well, and so it kind of forces him to realize that he has something in common with these people, which gives them a starting point for the relationship. Alright, so that's that theory in a nutshell. Let me get to that proof and evidence for why what I'm saying is correct and why what people are saying about the Skeleton Clique may not be able to stand up to the proof. So, point number one, which has two subpoints, by the way. It fits into the context of other 21 Pilots songs. So number one, Tyler writes about his faith all the time. It would be very difficult for you to point to a song that's not influenced by his Christian roots. Many of the songs are to God, many of the songs are about God, many of the songs are about his struggle with faith, you name it. And so the fact that this song could be about faith as well is no surprise. On the other hand, he rarely ever writes directly to the Skeleton Clique. Or to new fans. I think a lot of artists do that, but they're usually poppy artists and they're more famous. If he were writing to his fans or to the Skeleton Clique, I would be kind of disappointed, because I think that policing fans, telling people how to behave and act like that, isn't really something that he's ever done before, and it's not really his style. He typically writes great works of art that cause us to think and feel deep things, but for him to go around telling people how to behave or trying to manage a fan base, that just seems a little bit lower beneath him. I think he usually lets people figure it out for themselves and just shares what's on his heart. Number two, the other theory really can't decide who he's talking to. And with most of 21 Pilots songs, Tyler refers to usually just one specific audience. It's usually the culture, or maybe some people who need encouragement, or to God, or maybe to himself, something like that. But he rarely ever talks directly to fans, like I said earlier, but he rarely ever switches the person he's talking to up mid-song. According to this theory, even the very best of these theories, he kind of does switch back and forth a little bit, and especially in the outro, everybody agrees that it's to the new fans, but the stronger theories say that a lot of the rest of the song is to old fans. So you can kind of see where using this theory is cheating, because it's just too easy to say, alright, well, now he's talking to these people, now he's talking to these people, and it just makes it seem a lot more convenient, but not in a good way. So the hard and fast evidence there is just that he never does this, so there's not a precedent. And the circumstantial evidence is more just that it doesn't seem... it's lazy explanation. And third and finally, the other explanation doesn't adequately explain each of the difficult lines in the song. There's three difficult lines that I'm particularly thinking of. One, wait for them to ask you who you know. It's blasphemy, and they're outside ready to bust. Wait for them to ask you who you know is usually a line that other explanations ignore if they're talking about the Skeleton Clique. So they'll go through the entire chorus, but they'll just skip that line and they won't even mention it, just because they don't know how it fits in. Who are we supposed to be talking to? Or if we're talking to the Skeleton Clique, then who is it that they know that we're supposed to wait for, that they're supposed to wait to ask to talk about? Well, I mean, it doesn't make sense if you say that it's 21 Pilots, because the other people are already the ones coming in and starting that conversation. And if this is addressed to the new fans, it's a little bit stronger there, where they have to kind of slow down and be asked before they mention that they're 21 Pilots fans, which even still sounds kind of weird and micromanagey. Then we get to the it's blasphemy line. Blasphemy is definitely a religious reference, and, you can also use it as sort of like you can use it flippantly, to say that something is bad and it doesn't go against the social morals at the time. Then what is he talking about when he says it, if we're talking to the Skeleton Clique? The line right before is, why'd you come, you knew you should have stayed. It's blasphemy. what's going on there. It makes a lot more sense in the context of a religious interpretation. And finally, the line, and now they're outside ready to bust. And I've kind of already talked about that a little bit. It just doesn't make sense in the Skeleton Clique interpretation, whereas it does make sense in the witnessing interpretation. The explanation on Genius.com says about this line that he is referring to the demon's dark thoughts or glowing eyes that are waiting to attack the new fans. Where'd you come up with this? And I think this is the biggest problem with Clique theories about this song, is that they have to either show that he's switching views all the time, or they have to throw in things that weren't mentioned anywhere else in the song. Then even then, like, the song is not cohesive and they still ignore a line or two here or there. So I can't go along with this theory, and I think that it's wrong. So anyway, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. Don't forget to leave an explanation of why you think it's what you think it's about. Don't forget to leave a comment explaining your perspective on the song. I'd love to hear it. And I'm so glad that you listened to all of mine. Don't forget to like this video, and for more 21 Pilots song explanations that I might do, don't forget to subscribe. Talk to you next time.